How's it going, everyone? It is I, Anime Outlet, and this is part 2 of What If Deku Was One Punch Man. And now, let's begin. Izuku opens the door to his house, where we now see Inko sitting at the kitchen table, fumbling around with her fingers. She was quite scared Izuku wasn't going to perform well or was possibly going to get injured. However, when she heard the door opening and the twisting of the doorknob, she instantly had her head jolt towards the door. As Izuku would open the door, he would step in before shutting it behind him. "Oh, Izuku, you're back. How'd the exams go?" "I think I did quite well, Mom. Thanks for asking. I think I made it into UA. They had to ask me to stop destroying all of the things for the exam, for the hero exam, that is." Inka would look on proudly towards her son as she would then start crying. "I've seen you grow so fast. I've seen you grow from being quirkless to now having some insane type of power. I don't understand it at all," Inka would say, with tears flowing down her eyes as Izuku would hug her. "Oh, come on, Mom, this isn't the time to cry right now. We should be happy, as I'm pretty sure I made it into the hero school. And after demonstrating what I'm capable of, I don't think they'd just not accept me because of my quirklessness, after all." As Inka would just sort of laugh. "Yeah, hopefully they don't do that," Inka would say. 2 weeks would pass as Izuku would end up having a letter addressed to him in the mail, as Inko would end up looking down at the letter with a box below it as she would end up reading it, pushing the box inside as she would end up grabbing this letter, reading it that it was addressed to Izuku with a big gold stamp of UA right on the front of the envelope. As she would clench it in her hand, she would rush up the stairs, banging on Izuku's door. "Izuku, Izuku, Izuku! I think your letter came from UA," Ink would say excitedly, as Izuku would open the door, staring down at his mother, as she would hand him the letter, her hands now shaking in excitement, wondering if he had made it into the hero school of his dreams. As Izuku would end up opening the letter before shutting the door, as his mother would sit impatiently right by it, just hopping around, wondering what Izuku was going to say to her. As Izuku would open up the letter, a small disc would fall out. "Hello, Izuku Midoriya. It's me, Nezu, the principal at the lovely hero school that is UA. I have to inform you that you have made it into the hero program, Class 1A, the top hero course you could have made for first years. Congratulations, Izuku. Also, I would like to inform you that you are the first-year representative, scoring the highest amount of points out of all of the students in the hero exam. Congratulations on that as well. I'm quite shook at how powerful you are, and I'm looking forward to asking you a couple questions about what your application paper had said. But anyway, this disc will now self-destruct in around 5 seconds, Nezu would say, checking a watch. As he would start ticking away, Izuku would grab the device, just hopping it throughout his hands like a hot potato, before he would open his window, throwing it out of the window as it would then explode in midair. As Ko, hearing this, would end up opening Izuku's doors, just pushing it open. She would look frantically around, scared that something had happened to Izuku, as Izuku would be now sitting on his bed, just smiling. "So, Izuku, what happened?" she would say, questioning him. "Oh, I made it," Izuku would say, as those 3 words just captivated Inko's mind. You did?" Inko would say, smiling on towards her son. "Yeah, that's pretty cool, I guess," Zuko would say, still not sure what to say. Zinko would then push in the box that presumably had something in it, also addressed to him. Zuko would pull it open with his bare hands as he would look inside to see it was his UA uniform. As Izuku would smile on, falling back in his bed, just wondering what had happened over the past couple of years. He had grown so much, and now he made it into the school of his dreams. He just couldn't believe it. Izuku would be smiling on as his mother would smile towards him as well. Another week would end up passing as Izuku would be putting on his uniform as he would walk down the stairs as his mother would be preparing breakfast for him. "Oh, I'm so proud of you, Izuku. Good luck on your first day of school, she would say, as Izuku would bid her farewell before opening up the front door, leaving to go towards his school. As he would be walking along, he would just be thinking of how much he's grown, and he couldn't believe it. As he would look on at the massive arches of UA, as he would grab his UA ID before scanning it, as it would allow Izuku into the school, as he would end up seeing paparazzi around the door, having to shove them by to get in. As Izuku would be doing this, he would walk in, seeing the massive building in front of him, just towering over him. It was huge. Izuku was just captivated by it. It was crazy. Their budget must be insane, Izuku would think to himself, as he would walk in going towards the first years, as he would end up seeing the Class 1 classroom, as he would open the door, sliding the door open, as he would end up just having a wave of sound wash over him. It was like everyone was yelling in the room at once, as Izuku would just facepalm, being like, oh my, why does everyone have to be so loud? He would walk to one of the only open seats left, sitting down, staring out of the window, his fist on to the side of his head, just looking out at all of the birds flying around the campus. As Aizawa would end up walking in, sliding the door open before walking up to the podium at the front of the class, before just standing there, staring with a blank gaze on towards everyone around him. That took you long enough. I can't believe it took you so long to quiet down. You all are high schoolers now. You can't be spending this much time. You're also training to become heroes. You can't be wasting so much time on futile things as small talk and conversations. You're wasting your time and mine. You have a limited training time throughout your years here, so I suggest you use it wisely and to its fullest ability. So anyway, I'm Shota Aizawa, otherwise known as Eraserhead, your hero teacher for this year, along with your class, well, just your teacher this year. Your hero teacher may be different. Nezu, the principal, has still yet to decide it. Anyway, these are your PE uniforms, Aizawa would say, holding up, dangling a uniform. Those are what you're going to be using for today. We're going to be doing a quirk test. So anyway, go find the locker rooms. Get changed into your PE uniforms and meet me by testing ground E, alright? Go. You all have 20 minutes or else I'll expel all of you. At least all of you that are late. You can't be late as a hero. That means more casualties of innocent victims. So, you gotta learn to be quick. As by the time Aizawa finished his sentence, all of the students were gone. However, Izuku was faster than all of them, even Ida, using his quirk throughout the halls, trying to get faster than everyone. However, by this time, all of the other students in the UA had completely gone towards the auditorium, which was completely across the campus, for all of the introductions and teachers and all of that. While Class 1A, being the hero course, or one of the hero courses, the top one, had just decided to completely skip it. So, since they're not taking an entire day to deal with introductions and stupid things that Aizawa deemed worthless, they would have the entire building to run around to go find the locker rooms. Izuku, using his insane speed, would end up finding them in no time, as he would end up grabbing one of the keys, which just happened to have his name on it, as he would look around for the locker before end up finding it, opening it up, putting his PE uniform on, before racing off towards testing site E. As he would then get there, as he would end up just sitting up in a tree, waiting for the rest of the people to end up getting there. As 10 minutes would pass, and then another 5, Aizawa would slowly stroll towards the tree before sitting down with a yellow sleeping bag, as he would end up falling asleep, dozing off, with Izuku just staring down at him. Izuku would end up wondering where all of his classmates had been. Aizawa had made it extra tricky for all of the students to just find the locker rooms. See, Izuku had done things many of the students had not. He had just had a paper in his uniform pocket, which all of them actually just had. as when they were shipped out, each one of them had a map for the entire UA school inside of just their box. And so many of them not looking, as it was hidden, Izuku had decided to tear out the box and possibly reuse it, and so while tearing it out, he had found a map, and so with that he had known the exact location of the locker rooms. While the rest of the class had started to struggle looking for them, many of them still not even being changed into their PE uniforms yet. So as another 20 minutes and then 30 minutes would pass, Izuku would end up falling asleep into the tree as well. As finally some of the students would end up making it there to see Aizawa, their teacher, completely asleep in a tree. As they would end up waking up Aizawa, Aizawa would end up looking around to see that basically the entire class was there. However, he noticed one thing. Hey, what happened to the green fellow? Aizawa would say. I think his name was Izuku Midoriya. All of them would end up looking around as if someone was late, as Izuku would end up falling out of the tree, landing directly on his head, jumping up completely out of his just sleepless state, so he'd be holding his head in pain before looking around to see all of the class was staring at him. Huh, so that's where you were this whole time, Aizawa would say. Oh, so I guess the class finally arrived here. Took y'all long enough. I can't believe I actually fell asleep, Izuku would say, holding his forehead, as the class would then begin. Alright, Izuku, here, Aizawa would say, tossing a ball to him, as Izuku would catch it instantly. You got the highest score on the entrance exam. What does that mean? That means, you get to go first. As I would say, still quite sleepy, having been woken up suddenly by all of the students. So go into that circle over there and throw the ball as far as you can, as I would say, barely paying attention, as Izuku, stepping into the circle, would grip the ball before winding his arm back, as he would end up launching his hand forward, sending the ball flying, as it would go completely into space from the sheer power, as Izuku was now into a small crater, having just the massive air pressure and just pressure of Izuku's throw, sending all of the dirt and just stone under him flying or being completely destroyed, as all of the students would look on in shock at Izuku's sheer power. That power... Your quirk, it's just like All Might, some of them would yell towards Izuku. Over Izuku would just sheepishly smile. Yeah, I guess my power is close to All Might's, Izuku would say. As many of them would notice, Izuku didn't call his power a quirk. He called it a power. That was quite strange of him. However, Bakugo would push past everyone before staring directly on at Izuku, putting his finger to Izuku's chest, yelling at him. How the hell did you do that? You damn Deku, you're quirkless. You don't have a quirk. How'd you manage something just like that? Were you lying to me all these years? Lying that you didn't have a quirk? As Izuku would stare on at Bakugo before pushing him back. Calm down, Bakugo. I wasn't lying to you. I was quirkless back then, and I'm still quirkless now. However, what I've been able to achieve is surely just because of hard work. So maybe if you weren't bullying me all those years and you were actually working out, you possibly would have had some power like this. Maybe you should have used your time wisely, Bakugo, instead of being an idiot with it, Izuku would say, as many of the students would look on towards Bakugo. He had a fiery personality, and Izuku saying that Bakugo had been bullying him kind of matched what the personality was. As many of them would also begin to think what Izuku had told Bakugo back when. His personality, it matches those of what you'd think a villain would be. Many of them would think to themselves, not wanting to anger the Bakugo that was standing in front of them. And so Izuku standing there as Aizawa would begin the rest of the test, many of them performing average or sort of average. Many of their quirks didn't do well to a lot of these physical-based tests. However, Izuku would completely destroy it, dominating all of the tests with ease, as Izuku would just continue on easily doing all of the tests, as many of the students would end up just watching on as Izuku would end up just dominating, getting first easily, as many of them were physical-based tests. They weren't meant for a lot of the quirks that people had. As many of them would just say, well, it's no surprise Izuku got first, but it still wonders, many of the class wondering, but he's quirkless. It just doesn't make sense. How? How does he have such a power? Something that is so strong, something that possibly rivals All Might, or is even better than All Might. They just don't understand it at all. And so, Izuku, along with the class, would be dismissed as Aizawa would walk back to the class to collect his things, just wondering, this school year is going to be interesting with this new kid here, Aizawa would say to himself. We now see Izuku walking back into the building to get changed into his UA uniform to go home. As Izuku would be getting changed, he would hear over the intercoms something that was strange. Izuku Midoriya, please head up to the principal's office before you leave today. Izuku would hear this and would wonder, did he do something wrong? Why else would he have to go to the principal's office? Oh yeah, Nezu, the principal, he wanted to ask me some questions. That's what he said in the acceptance thing. Well, I might as well get going, Izuku would say, rushing off to Principal Nezu's office. As Izuku would arrive, he'd end up seeing Nezu sitting there with his hands clapped together. I've been expecting you, Izuku. Now, I have a couple questions for you, Nezu would say, staring on towards Izuku. You said you're quirkless, correct? Izuku would nod his head. Yes, Nezu. Ever since I was 4, I've been said I was quirkless all of my life. However, as soon as I started training, I sort of just awakened this power. Are you sure it's not a quirk, Izuku? Have you gone back to the quirk doctor at all and gotten it checked out? Possibly they missed a quirk and you have awakened one. I don't think that's the case, Nezu. I've actually went back to the quirk doctor's office just around 6 months ago, so they wanted to see how much stronger I've gotten. They wanted to do some tests after hearing stuff from my mother about how I've sort of just materialized a quirk out of nowhere, even though I'm quirkless, or supposed to be quirkless. So, I went back there. They did some tests and found I'm still quirkless. I don't have a quirk. And so I wonder what could have happened. It questions even me. But honestly, I just accept it at this point. I have a power that I've luckily gotten through hard work, so that's pretty much it, Izuku would say as Nezu would just nod his head. Okay, that's pretty much the only question I had for you. Anyway, you can go home. I still need some time to think about what could possibly be causing this phenomenon, Nezu would say as Izuku would nod his head. Alright, goodbye, Nezu, Izuku would say, walking back to his house. 2 weeks would end up passing with some small training lessons here and there. However, it was not hero training. They weren't fighting each other like heroes. And so, finally, with them sitting down after lunch, they would all be wondering what was happening. However, Aizawa would walk into the room, grab a piece of chalk before writing up on the board, Hero Class, before walking out, setting the chalk back on the ground as he would walk out of the room. Many of them would wonder what Aizawa had meant, however, a lot of them would also realize what he had meant by that. This was their first hero class out of the whole year. They're going to finally see who their hero teacher is. Many of them would start to get excited, wondering what was going to happen. As all of a sudden they would hear stomping and the building would sort of start to shake, stomping coming from down the hall, as all of a sudden the sliding door would completely just be destroyed, being shattered, as a punch would be flying through it, as there stood in the shattered remains of the door a shining golden figure. It was All Might, the #1 hero, many of them would say, jumping out of their seats, as all of them would look on in complete shock, as All Might would end up just laughing. Settle down, class, settle down. It's not that impressive to see the number one hero, is it? So, anyway, like all of you have seen on the chalkboard here, today's your first hero class and first hero training lesson. So, anyway, let's begin. Many of you cannot become heroes without your costume. So, with the costumes you've designed and with the help of the support course as of a couple of days ago, we have managed to get your hero costumes all settled out, All Might would say, as he would click a big red button, as all of a sudden a thing would come out of the wall, revealing just a bunch of suitcases. As all of the students would gather round, as All Might would start to hand them out, as it had each one of their names on it. With All Might handing them out, Izuku would receive his. As Izuku getting his, he would look on, opening the briefcase to see it was it was his hero costume. It was really nothing special. However, Izuku would shut the costume, as All Might would then ask them to all head down to City B, where they're going to be doing a training lesson. And then they're going to have to go to the locker rooms first, of course, to get changed into their hero, just uniforms or suits. So with them all rushing down, they would get changed into their hero suits, as Izuku would get changed first before rushing out. He didn't want anyone to see his hero costume. He sort of wanted to see the surprise on many of their faces. As Izuku would get to the City B and the exact building All Might had told them to go to, Izuku would see All Might standing there as Izuku would walk up to him. Izuku, why are you wearing, normal clothes? I'll have to explain that later, possibly when we're making our hero names, Izuku would say, as it just looked like he was wearing basic clothes you could find someone just sitting in some random restaurant wearing, as Izuku wearing just normal shorts and a t-shirt, as many of the other students just wearing all of these fancy looking things with random assortments of gadgets and all of that would look on in just surprise at Izuku, wondering why he chose to go with such a basic hero suit design. However, that was besides the point. All Might would start to explain the hero's first villains test. That is what they were going to be doing that day. How there's going to be 2 teams of 2. A team of heroes and a team of villains. The team of heroes will walk into a building and are going to be tasked with going up against the villains. In order to defeat them, they either have to touch a device planted by the villains that is set to go off in 15 minutes, just acting as a time limit for the heroes. If that time limit goes out, villains win. If the heroes all get captured, villains win. Villains all get captured or the device gets touched, sort of deactivating the device, that means the villains lose and the heroes win. And so as All Might would look on at sort of a fishbowl with a bunch of random things in it, he would pull it out, reading off the name, as he would see Izuku Midoriya, hero team, he would say before setting it down. Reaching in, Bakugo Katsuki, villain team, setting it back down, as he would pull out another name. Momo Yaoyorozu, hero team. He would set that down before pulling out another name. Tenya Ida, villain team. Alright, Bakugo and Ida, please head into the building. You will see the device sitting at the front door of it. Go plant it somewhere. You all will have 5 minutes to do so. The 5 minutes would pass, as All Might would then tell Izuku, along with Momo, that they may now head into the building. As Izuku would end up walking into the building along with Momo, as they would end up just all looking around. However, Izuku would be smiling, just with a killer intent. Cracking his knuckles, he would just continue on the smile, sending shivers down many of the students' spines that were looking on from one of the cameras. Why is Izuku smiling so weird? He looks like a devil, just wearing normal people clothes. It's strange. However, Momo would ask Izuku why he was acting so strange, as Izuku would turn around, just saying, I've wanted to finally be able to fight Bakugo for so long. I couldn't do so because I'd only get in trouble and Bakugo would be let off scot-free. So finally, I can finally fight him and show him who's boss, Izuku would say. As Izuku would be just walking around the halls aimlessly, turning the corners, As finally he would end up seeing sparks flare out from one of the corners as Izuku would put his arm out in front of Momo. Momo, go that way. I believe the stairs are that way. I think I've found Bakugo, Izuku would say, as Momo would run off towards the stairs, as Izuku would be standing in the hallway staring on as Bakugo would turn the corner. Well, 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 Bakugo. It appears we finally get to fight each other. All those years of you saying you were better than me, all because you were born with a special power. All of those years are finally going to go to waste, Izuku would say, staring down at his fists, as Bakugo would stare on at Izuku confused before jumping off. Like hell that's gonna happen, he would say, jumping off directly at him, reaching out his hands, sending an explosion going right towards Izuku. However, Izuku would just put his hand out completely straight, swiping up, sending the explosion barreling to the side of him, dispersing it instantly, having it run into some of the walls. That's not gonna work on me, Bakugo. You're gonna have to have some better technique than that, Izuku would say, before just stepping towards Bakugo. As Bakugo would rush on, going for a punch, landing it directly on Izuku's face. However, Izuku wouldn't budge, staring directly at Bakugo before pulling his fist back, punching Bakugo across the face with a very minimum amount of power, sending Bakugo directly through just a wall behind him, as Izuku would stare on at the defeated Bakugo sitting on top of a pile of rubble. Izuku would see Bakugo trying to get up, pulling himself up. I'm not gonna lose to you, you damn Deku, Bakugo would say, before rushing off towards Izuku, going for another explosion towards him. However, Izuku would dodge this as well. Come on, Bakugo. This isn't going to work. Continue on dodging all of Bakugo's attacks. Just give up. You know damn well you're not going to be able to defeat me. As Bakugo was saying, like hell that's gonna happen. I've told you that already. I'm gonna beat you, Deku. I've done it many times before. As Izuku would smile on towards Bakugo, releasing all of his killer intent. Oh, please, Bakugo. You know damn well I wasn't acting and using my full strength during those fights. I never even hit you once or bullying me. Why don't you go ahead and stop acting so confident? You're right. I'm not gonna beat you, but you're gonna beat yourself, Izuku would say, as Bakugo would reach out trying to send an explosion, over he would feel a hand wrap around his hand, as his hand would then be pulled on towards his head, as an explosion would be released, sending his head knocked backwards, as if a whiplash effect, as he would fall to the ground in a daze. His own explosion had hit him. He was confused, though, as he just couldn't see what happened. Izuku grabbed his wrist so fast, twisted his hand before putting it in the direction of Bakugo's head, sending an explosion towards him. Bakugo just couldn't explain it, as Bakugo would end up being knocked out by his own attack. Izuku would tie him up, putting him around his back before walking onto the top floor, where we would see Momo in the midst of a fight, with Ida trying to kick down on her bow staff. However, who was holding strong, as her hands would start to shake, as Ida would continue on the attack, pushing her back and back. Over as soon as Izuku would arrive, he would grab both 2 feet of the unconscious Bakugo, before swinging it around, slamming Bakugo's body into Ida, as Momo would be yelled to duck. As Ida would be sent flying into one of the walls, both him and Momo would at the same time touch the device, as All Might would yell over the intercom in excitement, "And the hero team wins!" He would yell, as Ida would look down in disappointment before seeing a hand reach out to him, as Izuku would pull him up after Ida would grab his hand. Good game, Ida. Although I didn't get to see you much in action, you'd be able to fend off Momo quite well, Izuku would say, as Ida just sort of nodded his head. As all of them would walk back, Izuku carrying the device, putting it down in front of the building, he would walk back to where All Might, along with the rest of his classmates, were situated. Good job, Izuku, as you were able to win with ease. So, now may the next match step forward. As all of the matches would end up going, many of the students would walk back to the classroom after getting changed back into their UA uniforms. They still had around 30 minutes left of school before it ended. As Izuku would be sitting down in his seat, all of a sudden Midnight would end up appearing out of nowhere. "Hello, Class 1A! Since you all now have your hero costumes, it's best if we decide what your hero names are gonna be. Of course, you can always change it later, although it's advised not to, because you're possibly gonna be building up publicity with that hero name already. So, anyway, why don't we begin with our hero names?" As many of them would start to brainstorm, Izuku had a hero name in mind. As Izuku would be thinking, that was what his hero name was going to be from the very beginning, letting the entire world know that a quirkless person can become a hero. As Izuku would be called up after a couple people would go up, just showing what they wanted their hero name to be, Izuku would show the whiteboard he had written his hero name down on. The quirkless one, Midnight would look on, just saying, "Are you sure that's what your hero name you want to be?" "The quirkless one?" she would ask, confused on towards Izuku. And that is where I'm going to leave this off. I hope you all did enjoy part 2 of What If Deku Was One Punch Man. I hope you all enjoy this series, and yeah, I hope you all do enjoy the next couple of parts from this series and just the series in general. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.